हरिः ओम् श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। ॐ वक्रतुण्ड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Namaste friends. Team Param Vedanta warmly welcomes you for session 17 of Kathopanishad. We are now reaching the end of the first section of the second chapter, where the Atma Swarupa is elaborately discussed. Since the topic is so profound and so subtle, Lord Yama gives enlightening examples and illustrations to explain the nature of the Atma. We will take up mantras 11 to 15 for our study today. Dr. Hegde sir, as always, will give us deep insights, simplifying this difficult subject.
Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. In today's class, we will touch on another topic as part of the introduction, and the topic is spiritual enlightenment or Brahma Jnanam. Is it possible through the mind? I will tell you a little later why I selected this for today's class. If you see various Shruti statements, there will be conflicting or seemingly conflicting scriptural statements. For example, there is this very popular mantra coming from the Taittiriya Upanishad, which says, Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. Brahman or Brahma Vidya is something which vacha and manasa aprapya nivartante. They are not able to approach that area. They're not able to enlighten us about it. And there is another very popular mantra from the Kathopanishad, which goes like this. Na tatra chakshur gacchati. The eyes cannot illumine Brahman or Brahma Vidya. Na vak gacchati. The speech cannot illumine. No manaha, neither the mind. And he goes on a little further. Na vidmaho. It is not something to be known because it is not an object. Na vijanemo. It is not something that can be taught. Now, here is a student who has given up his whole life to the teacher, and the teacher is saying, it is not something that I can know, nor can be taught. But then in Kathopanishad, the teacher will say, see, I have got Brahma Vidya from my teacher. I have learned it in a very peculiar way. So don't worry about this. Although this is true, be patient. Now, there are positive statements which come from the Kathopanishad. Uttishtata, Jagrata, wake up, get up, Prapya Varan, obtain a teacher, Nibodhata, enlighten yourself. In the Mundakopanishad, in the third chapter, the first section, ninth mantra, begins like this. Esho Anur Atma. The Atma is like Anu, is like an atom, very subtle. Chetasa Veditavya. It is possible to get that knowledge through the mind. Now, there is a very balanced statement, and this comes from the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which goes like this. Yatanto yoginaschainam pashyanti atmanam avashishtitam yatantopi akritatmanam nainam pashyanti chetasaha. Essentially, it means that with a prepared mind, you can get Brahma Jnanam. Through the unprepared mind, you cannot get Brahma Jnanam. To go through this verse a little in detail, Yoginaha. Yoginaha is one who has refined his mind. Yatantaha, because of his striving. Pashyanti, he He is able to discover this Atma established within himself. On the other hand, the person with Akrita Atmana, whose mind is not so refined, whose intellect is not so refined, the Atman may be always there around him. He may be trying, but because his mind is not prepared, he is not able to sense that Atma Tattva, even though it is that enlivening principle because of which he is able to speak, because of which he is able to live. Now, why I brought it is the first mantra, which Dr. Sachin is going to explain. This goes like this. Manasai Vedam Aptavyam Neha Nanasti Kinchana. It is only through the mind that you will be able to get this Brahma Vidya. There is no other way. Now, there is a science called epistemology, and epistemology will tell us how knowledge happens in our mind. All knowledge happens in the mind. It is not in the any other organ. It happens only in our mind. The important question is, what are the instruments to get knowledge? And the instruments are, or what are the means by which? The means are my eyes, my ears, all my sense organs. In addition, my mind and the intellect itself is a source of knowledge. And we also know by reading books or by listening to people. So what is called spoken and written words are also instruments of knowledge. Now, this is true for Laukika or worldly knowledge. Now, when we are discussing this term, whether spiritual knowledge is just like Laukika or worldly knowledge, we have to enter into certain terminology. And although I will try to explain as clearly as possible, these are difficult terms called Vritti Vyapti and Phala Vyapti. But somehow, if you can make your minds available for these things, then when these topics are discussed, you will not have an aversion for these terminology. Now, in Sanskrit, we have a certain terms for all these things. For example, I want to know all the things around me. In Sanskrit, the knower is called pramata. To know things, I use my sense organs or in my mind, or if I want to use a refined instrument like a magnifying glass or a microscope or a telescope, the instrument that I use to discover things around me are called the pramanam. It could be my mind, my sense organs, or any other instrument like binoculars or a telescope or a microscope. All these are all instruments of knowledge. The object that I'm interested in, that I'm focusing on, what I want to learn is called prameyam. And the knowledge that I get is called Brahma. Proceeding. Now, I want to know the importance of my mind and sense organs. Now, supposing we are all in a dark room, in a soundproof room, nobody is speaking. Now, just imagine that you are in a dark room. There is a light switch somewhere, but you are not able to reach that light switch. There are so many objects in the room, some of them very useful for you, some of them may be disgusting also because there are some creepy crawlies which you don't like. Now, as long as there is no light, there is no knowledge about any of the objects in the room. I will ask you one question. You are in a dark room, you don't see anything, you don't hear anything. The question is, are you there? You are immediately able to answer, yes, I am there. Now, to answer this question, I am. Now, this question, I am, is a very special knowledge. Sanskrit teachers or teachers of Brahma Vidya call this aparoksha jnanam, the knowledge of myself. Now, it is not indirect knowledge. It is not paroksha jnanam. It is not a knowledge of an object in front of me. It is not pratyaksha. It is about myself. Whenever I say I am means I am existing. I means conscious. Only a conscious person can say I. So this knowledge I am, as I did the little test with you, does not need any sense organs or very little aspect of my mind. So I don't even have to think. I can say I am. Now, this I am refers to myself or Atma. Everything else is Anatma. Now, we'll go a little, we will see how ordinarily knowledge happens because of my mind and sense organs. Now, because my eyes are open, I'm able to see so many objects around me. hundreds of objects. Whichever direction I turn, I see so many objects. All these objects I'm able to see because of my eyes. In my eyes, all these objects now become reduced to an image, and the computer of my mind will process them and have a thought. So you have got it. The whole world of experiences around me initially become reduced to images in my mind and to thoughts in my brain. Now let us go into the brain. And this is where I owe a lot to Bhagwan Ramana, who has given us this idea. Look at that illustration. You will see the original consciousness that illumines my mind is called Aham or OC in this illustration. My mind is not something like the table or chair. It has the ability to reflect the original consciousness. It is like when you stand in front of a mirror. Unlike a wall, the wall is not able to reflect your image, but when you stand in front of a mirror, it is able to replicate you. When the original consciousness falls on my mind is enlivened as if it is the original consciousness. But because of certain identification, there is a sense of a limited I am. And that thought in my mind is called aham vritti. Now, I told you when you see so many objects, all these are thoughts in my brain, hundreds of objects, all these objects, which in this illustration are called idam vritti, idam vritti. For example, I see a light source. That is idam vritti. I see a fan, idam vritti. I see a computer in front of me, idam vritti. But there is another thought in my mind. I am seeing the light. I am seeing the fan. I am seeing the computer. I am seeing the television. That thought is called aham vritti, which is the reflected consciousness. So we have three entities: the original consciousness, the reflected consciousness, which has a sense of me. And, and because of this, two terms we have to be very clear of. Now, when my mind goes and falls on the wall, or my mind falls on the computer, the ignorance of that computer is removed, and I get a knowledge. This is a computer, this is a wall, this is a fan. This word is called vritti vyapti. That means my mind is going and pervading on that object, and it is giving me a certain knowledge. Before I saw this, I did not have this knowledge. When I look this side, I get another kind of knowledge. So that knowledge that I get through my mind and sense organs initially is called vritti vyapti. Now, because there is another fellow there, that is the reflected consciousness in my mind, that fellow knows this is good, this is not me, this is mine, this is something I like, this is something I don't like. How do I relate to all these things? That knowledge is called phala vyapti. We got. So now ordinarily, whenever I see an object, I see two things. I see the object and I also know how I relate to that object. And from Brahma Vidya knowledge, we know there is an original consciousness. Because of that, my mind is enlivened. So we have three entities: idam vritti, aham vritti, and aham. By now, we have learned another term called vritti vyapti. All these objects are called, which I get to know, are called vritti vyapti. How I relate to that object, what is my relationship, that is called phala vyapti. So, shall we proceed? Now, let us take the room that you are sitting in. And in this room, there is so many objects, and all these objects you are able to see because of light. Now, every object in the room you are seeing because of reflected light. There is a light source. That light source has illumined all the objects. There is a direct light, and there is also a diffuse light. And because of the diffuse light, the light illumines everything. That diffuse light will also illumine the light source itself. Now, to see my light source, do I use that reflected light or do I use the original light? The answer is very clear. Because the light source gives you light directly and also a reflected light. That reflected light is insignificant when I come to see the original light. Now, this is important when I come to Brahma Jnanam, because Brahma Jnanam is the original knowledge. The mind is only the reflected knowledge. That is why in certain aspects we will say, when it comes to Brahma Jnanam, vritti vyapti is important. Aham Brahmasmi knowledge is important. But the phala vyapti, What is my relationship to that is not important because now I know I am that. It is like seeing this light directly. I'm going to proceed. I'll take you a little away to what happens when we fall asleep. What happens when we sleep? When we sleep, our mind gets enfolded. That means my mind is temporarily not functioning. My sense organs are open. My ears are listening to all the sounds. The dogs are barking. The traffic is going on the run. Sometimes there is lightning and thunder. But I have slept well. I don't know anything because my mind has enfolded. When you wake up and somebody asks you, did you sleep well? You say, I slept very well. I don't know a thing. But one thing we are all clear, that is, I slept well. This is something we need to reflect on because there is a certain consciousness that has been there during deep sleep, which my mind somewhere has recorded. And whatever is left of my mind, there is a part of my mind which has recorded. And when I wake up, I don't know anything else, but I know I have slept well. Agreed? We'll go again. Now you are fast asleep. Now you have come to the stage of waking up. When you wake up, what is the first thought that comes? The first thought is called aham vritti. The first thought, because this is the thought which will support, oh, I am here. Where am I? I'm in this room or in some other city. What time is it? Time consciousness, space consciousness, object awareness, all becomes idam vritti, that all that is supported by aham vritti. Now, these are difficult topics, but I have to go through. If you wish, please listen to it once again until you become clear about these topics. Now, I have moved away from Laukika or world knowledge to Brahma Vidya, where you use the same sense organs, where you use the same mind. How do we get Brahma Vidya, like other knowledge, also happens in my mind? That means the locus or the location in which the knowledge happens is in my mind. But the instrument that I use for is not worldly knowledge, but spiritual knowledge. Through the Shastras, which is enlivened by a guru. When the guru and the shastras give me this knowledge, the guru not only gives me the shastras, the guru also gives me a certain preparatory discipline like karma yoga, upasana yoga, certain values, so that my mind is prepared and my mind is ready for the ultimate Brahma Jnanam. Now, Brahma Jnanam is something very similar to what happens in this story. In this story, which we all know during the Mahabharata war, Kunti had a very selfish reason to protect her son Arjuna, and the biggest potential danger was Karna. She uses her ultimate weapon on him to reveal to him who he really was. So she calls him and she says, see, I have 6 sons. You know 5 of them. Would you like to know who is the 6th one? He says, yes, of course. And he says, that 6th one is Tat Tvam Asi. That one is you. Now look at this. He gets this knowledge that I am her son. All right. Now, when it comes to aparoksha jnanam, when it comes to about myself, is it like an object? Oh, that one I like, that one I don't like. Can you see that? This is where the phala vyapti becomes redundant and vritti vyapti alone is enough to give that knowledge. Brahma Vidya is like that. When you go to a teacher, the teacher initially gives you knowledge like of Brahman. Brahma Asti. The teacher will tell you Brahman is Sat, Brahman is Chit, Brahman is Ananda, it is infinite, on all that. And then finally, when you are ready, the teacher will say, oh, that Brahman that I was talking about is none other than that consciousness in you, that which is awake in the dream, in the deep sleep, in the waking state, that turiya, that fourth, in and through. Somehow the teacher tries to illumine our mind and gives you that aparoksha jnanam. You are not this body mind. This is what the idea that you have got because of your mind Mana eva manushyanam karana bandha moksha. The mind is the bondage, but the mind can be trained to give you freedom to realize through the same trained mind, I can realize who am I. And when that training happens, when the teacher says Tatutvam Asi, I get this knowledge, Aham Brahmasmi. I will conclude very quickly about giving a few examples. There was a certain student who goes to a teacher and says, My Lord, what should I do in order to become enlightened? And the teacher with an enlightened master would smiles and says, As much as you should do to make the sun rise and the sun set. And the student says, But I don't have to do anything to make the sun rise or the sun set. But he says, All your effort is to be so alert, to be so awake, to be able to experience the rising sun and the setting sun. The teacher's ability is to help you to awaken to our true nature. Now you will understand that Bhagavad Gita was Yatanto, the prepared mind and the unprepared mind. Finally, again, what is Vritti Vyapti and Phala Vyapti, which are the two important things. Both these are required for any worldly knowledge. Vritti or my thought pervades an object and removes that ignorance. This is a wall, this is a computer, this is a camera. That ignorance of that object is removed when my thought falls on that object. But then, because of my reflected consciousness, the reflected consciousness also illumines that object and makes me know that object is other than me. It is an object, I am the subject. And then you have various forms of relationship with that object. For example, for Brahma Jnanam, Vritti Vyapti alone is required as Atmakara Vritti. This thought should be there, Aham Brahmasmi, which is given by the teacher as Tattvamasi. But you will see it is like looking at the light source. I don't need a reflected light to fall on it. As the Atma is self-illumined and self-evident, the mind cannot know the self. The mind need not know the self. All the teacher has to do is turn our attention to the ever-evident self. In conclusion, this is one of the great contributions by Swami Paramarthananda, his hand and light example. He will show you a hand and say, what do you see? You will say, I see the hand, but then slowly he will make you aware of one thing that we take it for granted. I'm able to see the hand or any object because of the light on that object, and the light is not a product or property of the hand. It is an independent entity which illumines the hand and makes it seen. From the hand, move to your eyes. I'm able to see the hand because of my eyes. I'm able to see because of my mind. My mind is enlivened by consciousness. There is that Kathopanishad verse. Remember this as a Maha Mantra. Prati Bodha Viditam Matam. In every experience, come in touch with the experiencer. The role of a guru is only this. Bring your attention to that Atma Tattva and to claim that Atma as my real self. With that background, we will come to the verse today. Manasai Vedam Aptavyam Neha Nanana Kincham. It is through the mind alone that you get this knowledge, not through any other means, which will be explained to us by Dr. Sachin. Dr. Sachin, please.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. So, the verse exactly resounds with what Sir has explained us. Manasevada Matavyam Neha Nanasti Kinchana Mrutyosya Mrutyum Gachati Yaha Iha Naneva Pashyati. Next slide, we see the Avyam, Anvayam. This has to be attained through the mind alone. This means the Brahma Vidya here. There is no plurality at all here. Here means asti, right at present. One who sees this plurality, as it were, goes from death to death cycle. So let us go in deep as we see in the next. The teaching of Brahma Vidya is by understanding, and there is a warning also. So what is the understanding here? We see in the next slide. There is no plurality. Plurality means many, three sides. Generally, we say Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara. There is no duality also. Jiva Atma and Paramatma. What is there then? So only Brahman. Tat Chit Ananda. That's the only present Asti. It is there. This is the understanding. But this can be understood only through one's matured mind, trained mind, and through what? Through Guru Shastra Upadesha. Only Guru and through the Shastras, one can train one's mind and get this knowledge. So, what is the warning we will see in the next slide? One who sees duality or plurality, one who sees the Jiva and Jagat differently, then he remains in the life cycle of death and Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam. This is the big warning in this verse as well. In the next slide, we see. So, what should one do? One should claim your real self. As Sir already explained, from Idam Vritti, from the plurality, once Guru Shastra comes, he will have Vyapti Prapti. So, he will go to Aham Vritti, and then Phala Vyapti, he will come to Aham. So, Advaitam is to be claimed. The oneness with the self is to be claimed by dropping the body mind complex ego, which keeps us always away from it. And then and only then one will have peace, security, and happiness everlasting. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sachin. As usual, very simple and a direct explanation of this important verse. This important verse only says the same thing which I have spoken for so long, that Brahma Vidya is possible only through the mind. It is not somebody touching you here or, or through any other tantric experience or no other experience. There is no other way. That is what Kathopanishad says. Now, you have to see the oneness in the many. Although I see many, I need to negate them and to be able to come to that one. That means from the object, come to the subject. Pratibodha viditam matam. Although I see many, every experience should come to that oneness. And if you are able to come to that oneness, then you move away. It is the Lord Yama is trying to tell you how you can be free from the cycle of death and death. Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam. Neeta has two important mantras. Neeta.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. So earlier in the 20th mantra of the first Adhyaya, first Valli, Nachiketas the student had asked his third boon. What is beyond the death of the body? In the 14th verse of the second Valli, Nachiketas asked the same boon again, but in a different way. Is there something beyond dharma and adharma, cause and effect, beyond the past and future? Now we've come to the second Adhyaya, first Valli. Lord Yama continues to answer Nachiketa's query. Lord Yama, the Guru in this Upanishad, is using different teaching methods like Drishya Viveka, Avastatraya Viveka, Atmanatva Viveka to make this knowledge of the self clear. He keeps shifting from the microcosm to the macrocosm, from Vyashti to Samashti, and vice versa, to show that the consciousness within is the same as the existence outside. That which is there alone is here. That which is here alone is there. Coming to the verse, Angushtamatra Purusho Madhya Atmani Tishtati Ishanam Bhuta Bhavyasya Natato Vijugupsate Etadvaitata. Both the mantras 12 and 13 are Mahavakya mantras. Here, Atma is presented as residing in the body, the indweller. The word Atmani in 12 is used to refer to the physical body. The Atma is shown in the mind as the witness consciousness. And this mind dwells in the heart. Now, in the Shastras, the mind is said to be residing in the physical heart at rest and not in the brain. Now, the size of the heart is the size of a fist, folded fist. And therefore, in the verse, the mind is imagined to be the size of a thumb because that's what fits into a fist. So, interestingly, the mantra speaks of the size of Atma. It says, Angushta Matra Purusha. Angushta means thumb, Matra means the size of. Purusha, that is Atma, that which dwells within the heart. So the mantra is saying the Atma is as the size of the thumb. Again, in the 13th verse, the Atma is saying, Angushta Matra Purusho Jyotri Vadumakaha. The thumb, Atma is the thumb-sized flame without smoke. That means Atma is referred to as a bright flame in the heart. So the question will pop up, is the Atma limited to the body? No, it's not. We erroneously conclude that it is limited up to the periphery of the body. This is symbolic. We have learned Atma is all-pervading. In the beginning stages of Vedanta, to become aware of the Atma, the teacher always says, turn your attention inwards, look within. Swami Paramatmananji also says that this symbolism is perhaps given for the sake of Upasana. Before coming to the Mahavakyam, one can meditate on this Jivatma as something obtained in the heart. When we speak about the space in the pot, we first say it is limited. But then when we evaluate further, we know the space is not just within the pot, but it's also outside. In fact, the pot is in space. Same way, the Adhikari now understands the consciousness principle is not just within the heart, but rather the entire body-mind complex is in consciousness. The limitation doesn't belong to consciousness itself. It is sarvagatas, all-pervading. And that's exactly what the Upanishad says in the second line of this mantra itself. This Purusha, which dwells in our heart, is none other than Ishana, Ishvara, the all-pervading Atma, that which alone is the creator of the universe, controlling the whole universe with the help of the law of karma. Therefore, Yama Dharmaraja says, Bhuta Bhavyahu. Bhuta means past year. Bhavya means future. We can add in the present also. We must be clear, understanding that consciousness is not limited by the mind because it is all-pervading. It is in the mind also. Intellectually, we must understand enclosed consciousness is one with the unenclosed, all-pervading consciousness, not controlled by time either. In fact, it is the master of time. It is the control of the past, present, and future. Cognitively, we drop the upadhis by bhagatyaga lakshana and discover Atma within is none other than Ishvara. To summarize, Mantra 12, the Lord Yama, the Guru in Kathopanishad, confirms the oneness of the microcosm and the macrocosm. Mantra 13 is almost a repeat of Mantra 12, reaffirming and re-emphasizing this ultimate truth, hammering in the aikyam of Jivatma Paramatma is one and the same. Purusha and Ishana are here a mask on that one divine. The difference between them, although humongous, is only an apparent one. There is just an appearance of difference. It's like the snake's rope story, where the rope appears as a snake. We're clueless that it's a rope. And because we are seeing the snake, there's chaos. We are anxious, afraid. When we put more light on that snake, we recognize it's only a rope. There was never a snake. It was mistaken identity. It was a delusion due to lack of light. Same way, the world, the mind, the body are a superimposition appearing on that one reality, creating this full samsara, creating the chaos. This one reality is to be recognized here and now. There is no outside, there is no inside, there is no future, there is no past. It is, just is. This absolute reality does not die with the death of the Anatma body. It is eternal. In fact, Swami Paramarthananda ji says, when Sukshma Sharira itself survives the death of the body, what can one say about Atma Chaitanya? This Advaita knowledge, Lord Yama says, leaves us free of fear and insecurities. Na tato vijigupsate. And then finally, the Guru tells the student, Nachiketas, both in 12 and 13, this Nachiketas, this is the Atma you are asking for as your third boon. Etat Vaitat. Adyon.
Thank you very much, Neeta, for a very nice explanation of two important Mahavakyas which talk of Angushta Matra Purusha. You know, both Sachin, Neeta, when you are given a verse, when you spend almost a whole month trying to understand and trying to explain, the greatest beneficiary is you in trying to present that whole mantra in as simple a way as possible. Now, these are only symbols. The Atma is not of the size of the thumb. It is infinite, but you have to discover that within the cave of your heart. And once you discover that, Etad Vaitad, this is exactly what you have got. Then, na Vijugupsa se. Vijugupsa se means you don't need any form of security also. There is another meaning for Vijugupsa se is disgust. What is the disgust for? I decided I will not go back into the womb once again. That means I am not going into Punarapi Jananam. I have had enough. When you feel enough is enough, and therefore I'm not going to go back to nursery school, first standard, second standard once again. I'm done with all that. If that Vijugupsa comes to you, thanks to Brahma Vidya, now these two mantras are helping us to discover that Atma Tattva within the cave of the heart. Yetad Vaitad. Oh Nachiketa, this is what you asked for. We have two more very beautiful picturesque verses. First will be Indumati. Induji, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Yathodakam Durge Vrishtam Parvateshu Vidhavati Evam Dharman Prutak Pashyan Sthanevanu Vidhavati. Word by word, meaning goes like this. Pashyan Dharman, one who sees the jivas, Prutak, differently, Anuvidhavati, goes after, Taneva, them only, runs down in scattered streams and gets lost. Evam yatha, just as Udakam, water, Vrishtam Durge, rained on a mountain, Vidhavati, runs down. Parvateshu, the slopes, and it disappears. In the next slide, we see that in these two concluding mantras, Lord Yama emphasizes that duality, Dvaita Darshanam, leads to mortality, and non-duality, Advaita Darshanam, leads to immortality. In this mantra, he says that Dvaita Darshanam leads to mortality. One who sees Jivatma as different will be born again and again in the world of plurality. Taneva means the very same word of Jivatma. Jivatma is referred to as Dharma in this verse. To convey this, Lord Yama gives an analogy of water rained on the slope of the mountain. This water divides itself into many streams and then gets absorbed in the mud. It gets divided, dissipated, and destroyed. Water divided is water destroyed. When these streams unite together, they become a huge river and never gets destroyed. Unity is strength and division is destruction. The Jivatma who sees division will get destroyed. In the next slide, we find that Swami Paramarthanandaji also gives another example. When the wave looks at itself as an individual wave, it is frightened of mortality because it will eventually be destroyed. When the very same wave understands that there are no waves but only water, there is no fear of mortality. The wave knows it is eternal as water and that the waveness is just the name and form, Nama Rupa. The Upanishad emphasizes that the individual self and the cosmic self are one and the same. Those who think they are separate, such people are born again and again. Next slide. We have an illustration here to show the difference between appearance and reality. The rainwater that falls in different parts of the hills is pure. The source of the water is the same, but the water divides itself into different streams as it runs down the hills. Not only that, the water also assumes different colors, yellow, gray, and so on, because of its contact with the earth. The same water thus appears divided and separate. Similarly, it may appear that each individual has a self of his own because he has a body that is distinct from other bodies. But the Upanishad warns us that it is a mistake to attach any importance to the body and how it looks. The body is a superimposition and is therefore not real. It is perishable. If anyone thinks that the body is real and that each individual has a separate self, he is ignorant and he goes the same way as the body. That is, he perishes. Moreover, he is born again and again because of his attachment to the body. In the next slide, we see that the Upanishad forcefully asserts that the individual self is also the cosmic self. The individual self seems to be separate because of its association with the body, but this is merely an appearance. Just as the same in rainwater appears divided and separate, arising from its association with the hill and the earth. Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Induji, for a nice explanation of two more mantras. The first one that you have been explained, the second one will be explained by Dr. Sheila. Now, Yamadharmaraja is giving various forms of examples of how we need to move away from the experience of duality, because when we open our eyes, when the mind comes, we experience duality. Although we experience duality, let me become aware of that non-dual. In one of Tagore's poems, he says, when one knows thee, that non-dual self, alien there is none, no door is shut. Oh, grant me that bliss of being able to see the bliss of the one in the play of the many. This is a beautiful picture when rainwater forms, how it dissipates in different directions. That is what happens when there is a Dvaita. Then we will have the next one, which talks about the importance of Advaita. Dr. Sheila, please.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The verse is Yathodakam Shuddhe Shuddham Asitam Targeva Bhavati Evam Muner Vijanataha Atma Bhavati Gautama. After speaking on Atma Swarupam, Yamaraja in the last two verses of this Pratamavalli of second chapter describes the benefit of non-duality. And Indu madam, in the previous mantra, that is 14th mantra, said Dvaita Darshanam leads to mortality. And here in this mantra, he says Advaita Darshanam leads to immortality. In the next slide, here Jivatma and Paramatma Aikyam is revealed through an example. Jivatma is compared to a glass of water that is Shuddham Udakam, that is pure water. Paramatma is also compared to a water. Shuddham Udakam Shuddhesh Udake Asitam. When pure water in one container is poured into the pure water of another container, Tahat eva bhavati. You will not be able to differentiate one water from the another. Both becomes identical, inseparable, indistinguishable. Evam, in the same way, Atma bhavati Gautama. Hey Gautama, hey Nachiketa, Atma becomes one for whom? Mune Vijanataha, for a wise person. Muni means the one who has done Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam. For a wise person who has done Vedanta Vichara, Atma is only one. In the next slide, Swamiji says we have to get two important messages from this example. One is Shuddha Jalam poured in Shuddha Jalam becomes indistinguishable. Means what? Both Jivatma and Paramatma should be pure. Paramatma need not get purified. It is always and already pure. Only Jivatma requires purification. Hence the sadhanas, that is Karma Yoga. If Jivatma is impure, even if he mixes with the pure water, that is Paramatma, he is still impure as the mixture cannot become pure. So, purificatory process is a must for Jivatma. This is the first message. The second message is from this example is Jivatma and Paramatma merger is not a physical event which happens in time. Physical merger is possible only when the two things are physically away, that is, are at a distance. We all know Paramatma is all pervading and is very much in the individual also. So there's no need of traveling. So what? Dropping the misconception of difference is figuratively called as merger. So, by right understanding and right knowledge, one knows there is no question of merging, but one is already a Paramatma and will ever be Paramatma. And this Aikyam is understood by whom? By Mune Vijanataha, that is by a wise person. So, the adjective Jiva in the Jivatma and the adjective Parama in Paramatma are removed, and there is only one Atma which is eternal. So this is this from Vedam to Abedam is called Advaita Darshanam. By knowing this, Advaita Darshanam leads to immortality. Thank you. Hari Om.
Thank you, Dr. Sheila and Induji, for giving these very two beautiful concluding mantras of this first Valli of the second chapter. Same example where you have to move from Dvaita to Advaita. In the Anubhuti Prakasha, Vidyaranya Swami gives an example of rainwater falling on a well. When a pure water mixes with pure water, that means from the Jivatma, take away the Jiva aspect and leave the Atma. From the Paramatma, take away the Upadhi of Maya and leave the Atma. And both become very pure. And that is our objective to attain to Advaitam. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
What a brilliant class this has been. Thank you, sir, and all speakers, Dr. Sachin, Neeta, Indumati ma'am, and Dr. Sheila. The in-depth explanations hopefully have removed some of our ignorance and nudged us closer to claiming our true nature as the original consciousness. Special thanks to Dr. Timappa Hegde sir for that introductory talk, which literally opened our eyes, helping us become awake to our ever-existent self. We must, of course, watch it again and again for it to sink in and for us to be able to apply it and just be aware of our true self. We meet again on the 4th of March to parallelly continue our study of the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita through the gift series, session 16. Thank you all for being with us in this divine journey. ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः Harihi Om.